Right now, I think what we look at is both tail risks are opening up, right? The downside tail risk, I think, is a little bit wider, but you also have the upside tail risk.
So what do you do?
Well, I think the portfolio here is the strategy is simply stay invested, but shuffle the deck a little bit, right? We're looking at getting a little bit more invested with the U.S., a little bit less susceptible to higher energy prices. You're looking at maybe a little valuation discount because of the correction we've seen. Tech, maybe a place to hide here because it's a little bit more on the margin side, still decent revenues. It's really had a derating more recently. So bottom line, stay invested.
Derating means it cratered. Yeah. That's Boston Securities Analyst Society.
Yeah,
derated.
Exactly.
Cratered.
Jack, how about earnings? I mean, before the Iran war, the focus was on earnings, and earnings were pretty darn good out there for the quarter. And I think most companies were pretty optimistic about the remainder of the year. How do you think, are earnings enough to support these markets here?
I think the starting point matters. So we're coming in from a pretty good perspective. Yep. You've got margins that are still pretty wide, so we can see a little bit of maybe room for companies to absorb higher energy prices that are built into that. Again, still up and to the right. Maybe we take a little bit off that, so maybe you go from 15% expected for next year to 14, 13. Relative to the rest of the world, that's still pretty good. So when we talk about sort of positioning in portfolios, the more defensive relative bias, I think, is still U.S. and U.S. large cap in here.
Because, I was going to say, because we had the rest of the world actually outperform the U.S. last year, and I'm not, a lot of that was the weakening of the U.S. dollar last year, but so you still feel more or feel comfortable with the maybe a little bit overweight the U.S. versus rest of the world?
Yeah, and again, think about it more from a cyclical versus growth trade, right? Part of the trade was that we saw international developed outperform. It's because the cyclical portion of the economy started to reaccelerate. Now there's some question about that going forward if we start to see elevated energy prices for a prolonged period of time. So I think maybe you get the growth story coming back into play, and that's where the U.S. I think has a little bit of an advantage.
So you're at Boston University, and you're in the Pardee, and there's that Oriental rug when you go up the stairs and all that, and you're trying to be smart. Wise guy, can you explain to me Walmart with a PE forward of 43 and Microsoft with a PE at 23? I think across the arc of my career, that started at Foley's, if you know where that is. In the arc of my career, that's never happened.
Yeah, and I think part of this is maybe the AI story that's built into that, right? We sort of had that derating that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Anything that was associated with potentially being adversely impacted by AI, sell it down. Sell first, ask questions later. Let's see how this plays itself out. Maybe Walmart is maybe a net beneficiary as opposed to being maybe eaten alive, so to speak.
Yeah, I'll get that.
Market wants a higher premium for that.
Where's the biggest delinkage right now of common sense for our listeners and viewers?
To me, it comes back to that tech backdrop again, right? What's the U.S. good at? It's good at innovation. That's one thing that I think we're always going to be a strong port relative to the rest of the world. And yet to see this massive derating in here, to me, thinks, are we really going to see our sort of leadership in that area given back? I don't think so.
Okay, so I'm in Phoenix and doing a CFA thing. And I go to the Giants, fabulous baseball park, Scottsdale. Paul, you told me it's perfect out there. I'm moving there next week. And they're playing like the world baseball people. And a guy named Bregman comes up to the plate. The first pitch, the ball came down somewhere near Flagstaff. How much of the Red Sox can miss Alex Bregman?
The narrative for the Red Sox has changed. It's all about pitching and defense, and then we'll scrap out 3-2 wins. That's what it's coming down to.
It's like the Dodgers of our youth.
Exactly.
I mean, Raphael's like in San Francisco waving, hi. Yeah. Alex is like umpteen million with the Cubs, hi. Yeah. And we can't put it on Roman Anthony. I mean, he's not going to do it.
It's the pitching staff. I'm telling you, that's going to be the key here. If they stay healthy, they've got 4 quality starters.
It's just my youth. Jack, I think, thank you. Alex Bregman with the Cubs is going to be something to say the least.